Tiffany, you've been serving the public school system for the last 6 years as, I'm going to say the professional term is administrative office assistant, correct?
Yes.
But more fondly known as the school secretary. And for anyone, for those of you that are listening, for anyone who has ever worked in a public school building, you know that the school secretary really is not only the face of the building, but really holds a large chunk of the responsibility and what happens behind the scenes of the school. They can make or break the school climate. And so we're going to talk about that today because I had the honor of working with you for years, and I know you're continuing your work and serving the public education system. But talk to us about how do you set the climate and culture of a school when you are a lot of times the first person that they encounter?
Well, I mean, I guess for me, just being myself, setting the tone and climate of a school is honestly not very difficult. If you're friendly with the parents and it's genuine, people know the difference between you doing work because you have to versus doing it because you want to. Smiling at their children, getting to know the kids by name, just different things like that to make sure that they knew that it was a welcoming environment and that their kids were safe, and being genuinely cared for and not just a name on a sheet that has hundreds of other names on it. The biggest thing about setting a tone for a school is it really is people want to feel welcome. It's school. Your kids spend just as much time at school as they do at home, because any other time is like between home and school, walking, after school activities, different stuff like that. Some kids spend more time at school than they do at home, other than sleep. I don't really count sleep, but and so they, a parent really wants to know that their child is being cared for. So being welcoming, being genuine, and, asking them different questions to get to know not just their kids, but their family, all of that kind of stuff just opens it up where it's a good place that everybody wants to be.
Do you feel like you've gotten better at that over the 6 years that you've been in this role? Because a lot of times the school office is busy in the morning. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of people coming and going, and you still have to be warm and welcoming, even though you may not be in a moment of being warm and welcoming. So is that like something that, that's just normal for anybody,
No, absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
But people aren't going to take into account the kind of mood you're in. Again, like you said, they just want to feel welcome. So do you feel like that's something that you've gotten better at, that you've learned how to deal with different types of situations over the last 6 years?
Truthfully, I won't say that it's something I've gotten better at. I think it's something that I'm very consistent with. I mean, of course, now in the capacity that I work in now, it's not as many kids, but it's still the same thing. It's making an impact on a student, just having a general conversation. My role now is more so I work for Parkway's Alternative Discipline Center. So with that, it's not necessarily the families that are the happiest. So again, it's just all about your tone and how you deal with them, as to how they'll respond to you and even respond to the school programs. But you still make an impression on the kids where if they see you out at a store, they'll recognize you, and it'll be a positive experience where you may catch a smile or, I've had that, hey, I know her, and I recognize them, but, just leave them in their space. But, I did working in Ferguson, Florissant with you. That was, oh my goodness, I can't remember how many was the most kids we had.
I think probably about 450.
Maybe about 450,
yeah.
And I could confidently say I could remember at least about 400 of those names. Just from them coming in through the office. It's not a difficult thing. It literally takes just a few minutes to talk to a child, ask them their name, see how their day is going. And even with the office being busy, just prioritizing the time. The stuff with the computer can wait. When you're greeting the kids in the morning, that's what the focus should be. If they're late, if they need breakfast, any of that stuff, that takes precedence over anything else. I have my whole work day to do those things. I just need to get them to class successfully. So the office being busy never bothered me, literally never bothered me. I could have a line of babies out the door needing a tardy slip. Okay, I'm still going to ask each one of them with a smile on my face, what you want for lunch? That kind of thing. So, like I said, even if I'm having a bad day, I don't know how you have a bad day when you look at a kid. So that kind of helps put everything in perspective so that you can, again, set the right tone and the right mood. If I come to work and I'm angry and I'm letting everyone know it, that's not going to make for a great day or work experience for me or for them. And that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. And like you just mentioned, that these kids are coming in, and a lot of times have you had breakfast? You don't know what sort of environment they're coming from or what sort of chaos maybe has ensued at their house. And you may be the first safe place or the first face of comfort that they see. And so those 4 or 5 seconds or 5 minutes or however long they might be in there might sort of be that thing that they need to recharge, because once they get in the classroom setting, it's go, go, go. It's busy, busy, busy. The teacher's got all these other kids. And not to diminish what teachers do when kids come in to the room, because I feel like they're loving and supportive as well.
Absolutely.
But they're not usually the first, especially when kids are coming in late. So how do you sort of handle those emotions, when you come in and have a bad day, or you really maybe aren't in the mood, but these kids are coming in late and maybe they haven't had breakfast. Maybe they are coming from a bad environment.
If you have a child you wake up, you have a rough morning. If you have a child come to you, I think our day started at 8:45. If you have a child come to you, it's 8:46 or 8:47, and they know already that breakfast is over. They are literally in tears, in line to get their slip. Watching them go through that emotion completely takes precedence over anything personal that you might be feeling. And, I would take it upon myself to make sure that I called, I had a really good relationship with the ladies in the cafeteria, which is also important because they're more willing to help you regardless of if it's okay. I know that the rules around feeding children and things like that with lunch accounts and stuff gets really iffy. But if I call into the lunchroom and say, hey, I need an apple, I need an orange, I need something, and they bring me a bunch of whatever it is they've got left over from breakfast so that I can keep it at my desk. If these babies got to eat all the way down to their classroom, then that's going to make them happy. They have a full belly. They can focus. If a child is hungry, they're going to sit in class. Their stomach's going to be hurting. They're not going to be happy. They already know they missed breakfast, so they're upset about that. They're late, in which case maybe the classroom stops and all attention is focused on them. They'll be upset about that. Like, so many things can come from just that one thing, being tardy.
Yeah.
And it's easy to tell a child, well, make sure you let your mom know you need to be on time, but I don't know how to tell a 6-year-old that.
Right.
And mean it. It's not their fault.
Well, and you've had the opportunity to work in 3 very different environments when it comes to public school settings. So you've worked in an elementary building, that was K through 6.
Yes.
You've worked in an early childhood center, and now, which are like little bitties, the little pumpkins, and now you're working in an alternative setting, which I'm assuming is mainly middle and high school.
Mostly high.
Yeah.
We very rarely service middle. But yeah, it is very different, but high schoolers are just larger, small kids to me. Even though they're on the verge of adulthood, they still need to be guided and they still need to let someone know that they care. Even if it's just a conversation about something very small. Most recently, I had a student, and I could tell he was really nervous, about being there. He had never been in trouble before. He happened to have on some nice tennis shoes or something, and he saw mine, and he was like, I like your shoes. We had a whole conversation about tennis shoes before he went to class, and I could tell that totally just calmed him down. And he had the best rapport with his teachers, and he made sure he came and told me bye personally on his last day there. That kind of relationship, like that kind of stuff matters. Because had I not had that conversation with him and built that with him just that quick, it just would have been another day on his last day. He would have gone home, and that was it. For him to take time out of his day to come seek me out lets me know that I made a good impression on him.
Yeah. So you work really closely with the administrators and the people in the office. And so how does that impact your relationship with the teachers negatively, positively, because you're sometimes you're like the keeper of supplies. And, if teachers need to come and ask for more paper or more money, you're sort of the person that a lot of times is in the position to either say yes or no. So how do you keep the climate and culture positive with the teaching staff as well as the kids?
The biggest thing, especially when you're talking about supplies and things
Supplies
like that,
are important.
very, very,
People
very
will
important.
get insane over paper. And you know that pens, paper, I don't think that people really understand the length that teachers will go to get their hands on another ream of paper. It's only those folks on the inside get that. And people listening that have been there.
No, you're absolutely right. Paper is a super, super hot commodity, especially depending on what a lot of districts are trying to go greener, but you can't help it, especially elementary. Kids got to write stuff down, stuff like that. But, with supplies and kind of keeping things in the office, it was difficult sometimes because you have people who question whether or not they can trust you to ask you certain things because you have to have a close relationship with the administrators, as far as just like, well, I have this going on with this student. But at the end of the day, I've always been for the students, period. That's my job. That's my main focus. So if I have to deliver bad news about something, it's... Kristy,
yeah. Yeah.
It was what it was. But I also made sure that I made it my business to make it where it was easier for teachers to get the things they needed for the kids. So we used to get those large donations of book bags from the church across the street, and those came in so handy. Instead of just holding them and kind of hoarding them over everyone, I just took all of those supplies out. Now, if a kid needed a book bag, and I would tell teachers all the time, if a kid needs something, send them to me. I 9 times out of 10 have it. I will get it for them. We don't have to pay extra money for it out of the building budget, and we don't have to stress their parents out sending notes home saying, your kid needs a 3-subject notebook. If you see the notes balled up in the bottom of their book bag, it's not happening. Let's try not to make it a more difficult situation than it needs to be. For me, it was always about working smarter instead of harder and making everything as easy for everybody. Myself mainly, but making things as easy for everybody as possible. And also kind of bringing people back down to earth a lot on certain things. Yes, we have this available. That doesn't mean abuse it. If you go to this district or to this district, you don't get paper. Or you may get a ream and they say happy school year. And you as a teacher teachers spend a lot of money on supplies. I feel so bad for them that they have to do that, but look at other districts and what is being allotted to them before you complain about maybe the few things that you don't have. Some school districts, teachers get $50 to $100 for the year to spend on supplies. Your principal is giving you $300.
Yeah.
That's double or triple what most teachers get for the $300 for supplies for a school year. That sounds like nothing to me. Yeah. So it really is all about kind of putting stuff into perspective for them too. Yeah. To keep them down to earth so they don't get out of control with demands, so to speak.
Well, you talking about that, having, giving teachers a reality check and sort of bringing them down to earth and sort of making it your business and all these things. You really do serve as a school secretary, sort of almost like teachers will come to you to vent and to talk. Sometimes you're that person that they trust or that they really come in the mornings and you can tell, the principal may not see them, their colleagues may not see them first, but you're going to see them and talk a little bit about that relationship and rapport that you have to build with teachers, because I think that you do serve as that for them a lot of times.
Yeah.
And you also know everything that's happening in the school. You're the one person, the school secretary. Listen, custodians, secretaries, they know everything that's going on in that school. Is that true? Probably things you don't want to know. But you do.
Yeah. I mean, especially in terms of like, for me, it was always the discipline, which is funny that I now work in a discipline center.
Yeah.
But for me, it was always the discipline. You know, some of the kids that I would build a really, really good rapport with, but they're in class doing ABCD. And I was like, no, I don't want to know this. You know, I don't want, you know, and it's not for any reason other than, you know, I always just wanted to keep a certain view of the baby in my head. But at the end of the day, they're kids. Kids make mistakes. Stuff happens. But yes, I mean, sometimes, you know, and it wasn't, and nobody had to actually have like a full-on personal conversation with me. I don't need to know your business like that. But, you know, if there's something I can help with, or, you know, if I'm in the middle of working and you're talking and you're getting it out and it's helping you get it off of your chest so you can be productive for the day, fine.
Yeah, like if they're venting about how much paper they don't get. You're there to listen.
Exactly.
And to offer a suggestion.
I listen to a lot of that.
Yeah.
I was also lucky enough to have a couple teachers on staff that came from districts that didn't give a lot of supplies. And so to have another teacher say to them, I don't know what y'all whining about, you know, that was always helpful.
Yeah. What are some things that you think a lot of people would be shocked or surprised at, some of the things that you've had to do in your job, that they would never guess that a school secretary has to do, or things that you've maybe run into that teacher or other people would say, you know, I had no idea that they did that. I had no idea that they were in charge of that. It's really surprising to me.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Because I remember writing down once for my own mental clarity, writing down a list of everything I did. Like, not my job description, but saying this is what my day looks like. And it was really long. It was 2 pages, single spaced. And I was surprised just by the sheer number of, I mean, from being the person to collect all the change on popcorn day, or
popcorn day. Oh.
Or you know, oh my goodness,
so stressful.
Something that I didn't realize secretaries have, and it was probably the most trying part of my job, would be sub assignments. You know, making sure that every classroom had some form of coverage. And
yeah, because that really falls on you, doesn't it? If a teacher calls in and says, hey, Miss Allen,
this sub job didn't get filled, but I'm not coming.
Or the human resources calls you and says the sub job didn't get filled, you need to figure it out. Now you're in the middle of your morning, and now you have to find a teacher,
someone
to fill into this room
in
the middle of everything else you're doing. Yeah.
You know, we would be lucky enough to be in positions sometimes where we could work around that, as far as, let's say we had some TAs graduate in December and they had signed up to be subs, and it was a week where they didn't have school, then they could sub for us. And so it was certain ways that we would be able to work around it, but that was a very, very stressful part of my job. And then, honestly, just trying to make sure, I think that was one of the things that I didn't understand that I had anything to do with, was lunch counts. I'm not in the classroom. I don't know who's there and who's not. Attendance is in the classroom. I should have 0 to do with lunch, but I had something to do with lunch every single day. I never really got that part. I still kind of don't, but, you know, it's okay.
But you do it. Because that's what you do.
You do it with a smile and keep going. Yeah. That's all you can do.
So talking a little bit about being at the front of the building, you being the face of the building, you sort of being the first person that people would encounter. I want to sort of talk about that with the school security and the violence that we've all seen over the last, 5-10 years. And so you're, in essence, in charge of pushing that buzzer and allowing people to come in or to come out of the building. I know that some schools and some districts, have the security officer sitting at the front of the door, and that's the person that does it. But in a lot of your positions, that's you. So how do you deal with the security policies and procedures? Does that make parents angry or certain people upset when you expect them to show ID and put a sticker on when, maybe they don't feel like they need to? So how does that weigh on you, and how do you handle all of the security issues that we've really sort of started doing in the last 5 years?
So I know especially being in the elementary school and being in the preschool, that was something that was a little challenging, mostly in the preschool. Some parents, once that was put into place, hey, we're going to give you all this badge. This is what you will use when you're in the building. Well, do I have to have it every time I'm in the building? And, those types of things. And the thing about it is I'm really good with faces and I'm really good with names. I'm good. So for me, it's never an issue about knowing who's in my building. I've always known who's in my building. 400 kids or 50 kids, it doesn't matter. I know who's in my building. The issue is if I'm not here and we haven't set up that routine for you to do these things, and someone else is here and they don't know you, they haven't built their relationship with you, I don't want you giving them a hard time because they're asking you to do what the policy is. That's the policy. You have to show your ID so that we know who's coming in and out of these buildings. And honestly speaking, when you break it down to parents from safety aspect, in a sense of not just the security of knowing who's in the building, but if you let a parent know, well, if there's a fire, I need to be able to tell them you're here. Because if you're not with the group, we're not looking for you. We don't know that you're here. You give them the right scenario, then they'll understand it and they're more apt to comply with the procedures as they're set up. Because it really is all about the safety and knowing that the kids are safe. I've had several situations, most recently at the preschool, someone came to pick up a student that the mom forgot to put on the emergency contacts. I am so sorry, sir. I'm going to have you wait. I have to get mom on the phone. That's literally the only way that I can let you leave with this student. He provided his ID and we put him in the system, once we had spoken with her. But it's inconvenient for you, but it has to be done for us. Mm-hmm. It's a must. There's no way around that. Mm-hmm. None whatsoever. Because if we have someone that's not supposed to be in the building, if they get flagged for whatever reason, then that will fall on me.
Right, that's right. That's a lot of responsibility for you.
It is. It can be, but at the same time, it's procedure. It's not. Mm-hmm. It's not that difficult to follow. Mm-hmm. Thinking about the possibility of a person coming in and there being a flag of some sort. Thinking about the idea of confronting that is kind of intimidating in a sense, because you don't want to have to confront this person and maybe this person get upset, mm-hmm. or, create a volatile situation in any way. But again, it's something that has to be done. And even though you're the person at the front, that's kind of what I signed up for in essence. There's not a school secretary that can say that they don't understand in that respect what they signed up for. Yes, the climate has changed and things are not the way they used to be, and I get that, but they are now this way. So if that's the job you're going to do, that is part of the job. It's to me, it's no different than a security officer or someone like that. No, you may not have that type of training, but you are the first person that may get confronted in a tough situation. Mm-hmm. And that is a very scary thing to have to come to terms with, but if you love what you do it.
Yeah. And you don't have a teaching degree?
No.
And you've been doing this for 6 years?
Yes.
And you are amazing at it. You're phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Is this something that you ever saw yourself doing?
No.
7 or 8 years ago?
No.
How did you even fall into this line of work? Because honestly, I'll tell you, coming from not only someone that's just worked with you, but many other wonderful school secretaries and office, professionals, it is really a lot of responsibility. Mm-hmm. You may not have a teaching degree, but you're still doing a level of teaching when you're interacting with students on a daily basis and building relationships and all of the stuff that you have to do. It is like a full-time career. You put in the same amount of hours. Yes. You just may not have, the college degree that has your name on it.
Right.
So how did you sort of fall into this? Now it's sort of become your your
The
career
path,
or your
right.
line of work?
I was actually a legal assistant for a criminal defense attorney in the city of St. Louis for 7 years. I learned a lot. I still have a lot of legal knowledge swimming around in this brain of mine. And he had unfortunately suddenly passed away. And I had been debating on what I was going to do because he was the sole proprietor of his firm. And it was like, okay, what now? Because even though I'm working with the people who were working with him, technically I don't have a job. So I put in my application in Ferguson Florissant a couple of times for a couple of different things. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I'm not the best with tests. I've never really been a great test taker. And so the first time I came to the district to test, I did not test well. Mm-hmm. So I kept trying, and eventually, I did well. I just didn't give up on it. And eventually I got the phone call that, schools were looking for a secretary, and that I would have a panel interview. And it just kind of went from there. It was actually much faster than I thought it would be once I got that part out of the way.
Getting into the position, knowing what you knew about it as a student yourself, and obviously just living in the world where education is important, and knowing what the job of a school secretary was the job everything that you thought it would be? Was it harder?
Oh no, it was much harder than I thought
harder.
It was going to be. As kids, we see the school secretary and we think it's because I can't tell you how many sixth graders, and I wish I could name them all, how many sixth graders told me, I just want to do what you do, Miss Allen. You just sit up here at the computer all day. Mm-hmm. It was, but they're kids, and I remember being that kid thinking, that lady in the office, that's got to be life. She doesn't have much to do, but she does everything from scheduling each and every student into their classroom, and making sure these kids eat every day, and making sure that their attendance is in the computer. I mean, everything. If the parents need to be called, sometimes I'm the first one to call them to get them to the teacher so that they can have whatever conversations. There's so much more to being a school secretary than the lady at the front desk that just says hi to everybody.
Yeah, and on top of that, you're also really the assistant to the administrator. And especially when you're in a building where maybe there is no assistant principal. Maybe it is a smaller school and there's just one administrator. You're sort of that person for them, and you're helping with referrals, and you're helping with discipline, and you're helping with getting her schedule or his schedule down. You're making sure that everything is lined up for them and helping them with their meeting agendas and things like that. So I do appreciate your canter about how much there is to do, that people don't see it. They just think of the school secretary, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That poor secretary sitting back there,
that's it.
Pushing her intercom. There's so much more to it.
It really is.
Yeah.
The intercom was the part I liked the least.
Yeah.
Oh, I never liked being on the intercom, but it had to be done.
It did. It did. What do you love most about being a school secretary?
The people. Honestly, just getting to know all the different families and building relationships with the families and the kids. It meant and still means the world to me to run into a family and for them to still say today, we miss you, and their kids aren't even there anymore. That's the best thing ever, because it lets me know that my interactions with them and my relationships with them and their children made a very, very positive impact, that they cannot have seen me for the last 4 years and still be like, oh, Miss Allen, school haven't been the same since you gone. It does. It means a lot.
Mm-hmm. What's the worst thing
about being a school secretary?
Or something that you don't enjoy?
Staff change. I would say that can be the hardest part or the most challenging, because once you've built certain rapports with certain people, or even if it's somebody that you maybe had a challenging relationship with in the beginning, but then you finally reach a common ground and then they go to a different school, and so now you have to start all over with this person and getting to know them. Staff changes, I think, is the most difficult part about it, just because it's constant. It's almost just like the students when they leave and you've got a whole new batch coming starting at 5, you know. You have to get to know all of this whole new group and add that to the group that you already have, you know. So all that change can be kind of trying sometimes, but it's part of it.
Yeah. So speaking of staff changes, inconsistencies, getting to know new people, you know, we have a lot of issues facing the world of education. And I know that you are aware of those, even though you may not be in the classroom setting, you're still in the public school setting. And so you stay on top of those things and you hear about them coming in. National teacher shortage, you know, rise in discipline issues and behavioral issues, you know, rise in violence in schools, you know, teachers not being prepared when they're in the classroom, funding issues. All of these issues facing education, do they affect you? How do they affect you?
I think they can, depending on kind of where you want to go. Like as a secretary, you know, I'm not a teacher, so I don't have a degree in teaching or anything. So, you know, for me, it is a career, but it's also a career I can opt out of at any given time. Whereas someone who's put the time and money into becoming a teacher, that's something that they're planning on doing until they retire, or at least most times you think. And so, you know, I love the job and I love all the aspects of it. But like I said, I could walk away at any time. So seeing teachers and hearing about them, you know, teachers being physically assaulted in the classroom. Oh my gosh, in my day, a teacher was equivalent to your parents. They're not somebody you would talk back to. You know, you may have that one kid in the school who like to test adults, you know, but it wasn't a whole classroom filled. Nowadays, all these kids have their phones out and they're waiting for something to happen that they can record and post and all of those things. So, I mean, being a teacher is not an easy job, especially not today. I think it's harder today than it's probably ever been. On top of it, you know, teachers are asked to do a lot. They're asked to continuously, outside of their education, invest more money in just doing their job every day. Most people aren't asked to spend money to do their job outside of maybe buying a uniform. You know, if a teacher really cares, they spend a lot of money making sure kids have things, making sure, I mean, you remember, we went and bought tennis shoes for kids that couldn't participate in gym. You know what I mean? It's
tennis shoes, pants, you name it. We were at Target.
Buying, you know, making sure the nurse's office has spare underwear for kids that have accidents.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff is not necessarily something people in school should have to do. Like the school should be able to have funds for those things. And so to see how stuff has changed even more since I left, like since you left, is so interesting to me. Like I couldn't imagine us having to deal with a student hitting a teacher, just right in the face, hitting a teacher. I couldn't imagine us having to deal with that. You know, I mean, I think we would try to be as you know, lighthearted. I think that was one of the things that I loved about working with you so much. We were able to bring a lot of stuff down a little bit so it wasn't as crazy. But yeah, it is. I don't know. I just couldn't imagine being a teacher.
Yeah, it's definitely changed.
It's so different.
Even in the couple of years that we, you know, not been in it in the same building. So if you were speaking with a group of teachers right now.
Yes.
And they said to you, Tiffany, tell us what we can do in our schools, something small on a daily basis, to make the school secretary have a better day, to make her know she's appreciated. What are some things you would tell that group of teachers that, coming from someone that's a school secretary, what are some little things that teachers can do that they might not even think about to make the school secretary's day better and to let them know how appreciated that they are?
You know what? The smallest thing that they could do is to take out a Post-it note and write thank you and leave it on our computer or put it in our mailbox or have your kids, you know, write her thank you notes or, you know, just literally a piece of paper and a pen is all you need to let somebody know how loved they are. I knew that I was loved at Parker Road all the time. Like my birthday, Secretary's Day, Christmas, it wasn't about any kind of actual gift. It was the kids coming in with flowers that they colored and gave me. You know, it just, I still have some of that stuff from then. And it means more than anything anybody could do for you.
Yes, it's just the little things.
It is. It really is. Or
Yeah.
just saying thank you. Because people expect what you do because it's your job. But thank you goes a long way.
Well, I certainly hope that you don't opt out of what you're doing because you are by far, I've worked with a lot of people, one of the best school secretaries. You bring a lot to the job, you bring a lot to the kids, you bring a lot to the environment. So the folks that where you are, they're very fortunate to have you. And I think that it's great that our listeners can get a glimpse into sort of the behind the scenes look at what you do and what all school secretaries do on a daily basis. It's a tremendous amount of work, and it's very noble. So thank you for coming in today. It's been a pleasure to see you. I know. I love it. Any chance that I can get to see you is always thrilling. And so you'll have to come back, you know, at some point and let us know what's happening to you in the next 5 years and how your life has changed. But a pleasure. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And this is Kristy Houle signing off for this episode of Classroom Matters. Don't forget to go check out all of our great resources on the educate.today website.